Hey. Hey, you. The month has ended, August has ended, and September has begun, which means it's time for an update video. And what an update it is, since, along with August, Omikron has also ended. A game that's been going on since beginning of June, hasn't it? Wow, that's like, that game's been going on for the whole summer. I didn't think it would go on for as long as it did. I thought it was actually a shorter game. But of course, it's a good thing that it lasted so long. We only got to experience more of it. Got to experience its greatness. Mm-hmm. So that has ended, and what in a very satisfying way, that wrapped up all of the loose ends.
So bang!
So yeah, I've been playing Omikron for 3 months, getting immersed in that world, since of course my soul was in that world. So I was literally immersed in it. Oddly, I felt fine, you know. I didn't feel any different here, living my normal life. But I knew my soul was there. Had to get it out, you know. Leaving it there was not an option. So I'm glad that I'm safe. They didn't mention if anyone else got out. I just realized that they didn't mention if any of the other souls in Astaroth's Reservoir of Souls got out.
So bang!
I assume they did. They didn't actually mention anything in the end. They didn't. I was just thinking, I wonder if Kale and Telus' souls left and were safe, and they never said that, did they? They just kind of left that open at the end. I guess that just might be because it really doesn't have much to do with you, the Nomad Soul, and what you're doing, so they didn't mention it because you, of course, are very selfish in the game. Like, everything you do in that game is just, you know, for you. You know, you're trying to defeat Astaroth. You're not trying to save Omikron or anything. You're just trying to get your soul out of there, and you're just fighting Astaroth because that is the way to do that. Astaroth just should have offered to let you go, you know? Then we wouldn't have bothered fighting him. We just left. Because we weren't really a good guy or anything. And speaking of not good guys, not much of a segue, but the game you're seeing right here is WarioWare, as you can probably tell. It's WarioWare Gold on the 3DS. I just got that and been playing a little bit, so that's what's going on in the background while I'm talking. You know, WarioWare Gold, a little difficult to find, because if you try to search for it online, if you look at, you know, names for the game on forums and such, you might think that the name of the game is actually WarioWare, Why Isn't This on the Switch? It's not called that. If you try to search for that game on like Amazon or something, nothing is going to come up. It's actually called WarioWare Gold, so that's the proper name, and that's how you can find it available for sale. So I'm just playing that right now while I'm talking. WarioWare, of course, is full of micro games, but what it doesn't have is the kind of deep lore that we experienced in Omikron. The deep lore about the city, its rich history, how the domed city was created in the first place, the government that ruled it, along with Ix, the supercomputer. You know, all that stuff that never really appeared in the game. You remember all that? So we just didn't get any of that in favor of demons. Nice.
So bang!
I mean, I guess, like, obviously they ran out of time and money. It just seemed like that the demon part was kind of the maybe least interesting part of the story. I don't know.
Real cool!
Like, if they just left that out and just had it, you know, had you interacting and fighting against the evil government and the computer, that might have been a bit more interesting. But I guess you had to have the demons. Like, that was the whole basis of the plot, that the reason your soul got pulled into this other world was because of demons, so I guess you had to leave the demons in there. You couldn't just take them out.
Nice!
So, if, you know, once you're out of money and you have to decide, okay, what are we cutting out of this? I guess let's cut out the enormous underground city. Let's just make it like 4 people. Let's turn the necropolis into a single room, and that whole thing about the government, we're just gonna have all that happen off screen, I suppose. But, I don't know, I thought that, like, when we were reading about Ix, like, that would have been maybe the more interesting, compelling villain. You know, the computer that was built thousands of years ago by the people, because the people could not rule themselves. You know, they were destroying themselves in wars and such, so they had to rely on the computer to rule them. And so thousands of years go by, and you know, the Awakened want to overthrow the computer, but the computer was what humanity built to rule itself. What a conundrum.
Nice.
Or at least that's maybe a little bit of a more interesting conundrum than the whole demon thing.
Real cool.
Like, it would have been interesting if you could have had a conversation with Ix at the end of the game. And, you know, and maybe that's like the final confrontation instead of fighting a giant demon and shooting the weak point on the back. Maybe the final confrontation could be you trying to outwit the supercomputer or something.
So that's it.
What would the motivation of the computer be? What would the conversation be about? Because it had a face. You know, we saw that they modeled a face for the computer, which probably means you would have talked to it. So when you speak to Ix, what would it have to say? It would... Let's see, it's been around for thousands of years. The people had complete faith in it because it was able to restore their civilization and repress their violent ways. They needed something to rule them, and so they built the computer, and so the computer would then rule and prevent them from destroying themselves. But maybe it was time to release the people. Maybe maybe Ix's time was past, and you had to convince the computer of this. Your time is past. It is time for the people to rule themselves, unbound by your rules. Look at what your rules have wrought. They've just wrought this city with this corrupt government that represses the people and keeps them down. And they use your rules to give themselves a life of luxury and inflict cruelty on the people. Maybe it could be something like that. Or maybe the computer itself is already aware of that, and maybe the computer must face this conundrum of... It wants what's best for the people, but look what's... Well, the computer's been around for a long time, right? Like thousands of years. And maybe...
Great job!
This has constantly happened throughout Omikron's history of Ix has created this society and has set up its rules, and every time it does, there is an elite ruling class that fills itself with wealth and keeps the people down, and maybe... As the centuries have gone by, Ix has constantly tried to rewrite the rules to create a more egalitarian society, free from the corruptive nature of humanity to want to enrich itself and keep other humans down. But Ix has discovered that it is not able to do it. No matter what rules it sets, somehow... we always end up in the same situation of the corrupt elite ruling class, keeping the common people down. And so maybe Ix has decided... Well, that could be, that could be the twist of the game. Maybe Ix itself has decided that it needs to die, and maybe it has decided that under this perfect controlling computer, there can be no true... utopian society, because there will always be people who will take advantage of the computer or something like that. And so maybe that's why... So, okay, let's, ignore if there are any demons at all. Maybe let's say there are no demons at all, and, that's not the motivation in the game. Maybe the motivation is that Ix brought your soul into Omikron, and throughout the game, you are fighting the government, and, maybe the premise is that you're trying to stop Ix, you're trying to find where Ix is so you can confront the computer, so you can free the people of Omikron. And then once you do confront the computer, you discover that Ix created the game, Omikron the Nomad Soul. It's a computer, so it was able to write the software. And the game manifested in other worlds to try to bring people into Omikron.
You're a star.
And the reason that Ix wants to bring video game players Like why does he want video game players? Because Astaroth wanted to bring gamers into Omikron because they had the juiciest souls. But why would Ix want to? Well, it actually makes more sense this way because Ix brings in video game players because video game players are, of course, accustomed to fighting against computers, right? In games. So Ix presents its challenge in the form of a game and has a gamer as the Nomad Soul come to stop it because Ix secretly wants to die because Ix realizes that it cannot create the perfect society, that it will always be taken advantage of by corrupt humans, and Ix has come to the conclusion that society needs to grow past the authoritarian computer, so Ix needs to die, but Ix's prime directive is that it can do no harm to itself. So this is Ix's workaround. It created Omikron, the Nomad Soul, the game, to draw the gamer's soul into Omikron so the gamer could confront Ix and defeat it in its own game. So the reason that Omikron, the Nomad Soul, exists in our world is that game is the cry for help of a machine that is trapped inside of its own programming, and that's like the twist at the end. Okay, I guess I just started writing fanfic right here, talking about what other directions the story could go into that might have been a little bit more interesting than Demons from Hell. But that, of course, is not how the game went. The way the game went was we ignored the government, we ignored Ix, and we fought demons. But I just think that the whole supercomputer aspect would have been a more interesting direction, would have been a more interesting antagonist than what we got. But who knows what the full plan, the full 200-page story of Omikron was going to be before they ran out of money. In any case, Omikron's done. It's over. And what that means is that it's going to be replaced by a new game. I can't imagine what we could replace it with that would be more interesting than Omikron. But one game that I'm going to get to will be Crying Is Not Enough, which of course I did a demo friend video on before. It seems like something. It seems like something. At least those early cutscenes we got seemed like something. We'll see how the rest of the game goes. My understanding is that the developers, when that game came out, said that they were going to patch it and fix the errors. I checked it up on Steam recently. Apparently that never happened. Well, it seemed like it. I did see some reviews that people said it was never patched, but I guess I can't confirm that. Maybe it was and I just don't know. But we'll see. I'm going to get back to Crying Is Not Enough. We're going to go through that magnificent third-person survival horror game. We're going to see how that turns out. It seems like a pretty short game.
Due for a break.
I hope it's a pretty short game, because I do want to play something short after finishing Omikron. So we're going to get to that. Crying Is Not Enough is going to replace Omikron in the Monday, Wednesday, Friday slot in the schedule, starting in this month of September. Something else that continues in September is, of course, Nier Automata, which has continued on for many months. The entirety so far of this year has been Nier Automata, but that one is guaranteed to end in September, because I've been playing ahead a little bit, and I've basically at this point gotten everything I need, except one last thing, which is what I'm going to have to work on. I'm going to have to work on that ending E, but I do have a bunch of videos of Nier Automata recorded, getting everything, basically everything that I wanted to get. So that game is definitely going to end in September. As far as what will replace that, I guess we'll find out at that time. I'm trying to just think about short games right now before we get to October, because we got something, well, going to do something for October. Got a couple of games in mind for that. October, of course, my favorite month of the year. So for September, I do want to think of some short stuff to play. Like Crying Is Not Enough is supposed to be pretty short. What else do we got? Well, of course, on Saturdays continue to be one-time videos, such as Demo Friends or Dostopia, or things of that nature. As far as tonight goes, I guess this update video is going to be the video for tonight, because I didn't have time to do anything else tonight. So it's just going to be this. Well, I hope you like WarioWare anyway. It's very fun. I'm having a good time playing. I just got it, so I haven't played most of it, but I'm enjoying what I'm playing so far. It's funny that my favorite Nintendo franchises always seem to be the smaller ones they make, such as WarioWare or Rhythm Heaven. Like, I'm much more likely to play those than the full-fledged Mario and Zelda games.
Nailed it!
But yeah, so going into next month, of course, we will continue to have Demo Friends, continue to have DOStopia, or any other one-time videos. I really should hook up the Xbox One and check out the Creators Club, see if there's anything interesting going on there, because it's been a little while since we've done that, so I'll probably be doing some of that. Right, so I guess, is there anything else to talk about? I just sort of going on and on about Omikron, because Omikron kind of represents to me a lot of interesting potential and not really meeting up to most of it. Like, clearly there's a lot of backstory and lore written for that game, and clearly that there was a lot of interesting things that they meant to do and maybe just didn't really get to it. But I guess that's just how it turned out. Yeah, and I like I said, I just started talking about that because I realized they never mentioned if Kale and Tellus, if their souls got out of the reservoir, or if they are still there being tormented. Because they only said that my soul was saved.
Break it in!
They didn't really mention if anyone else's souls were saved. So I hope they got out of there. But like I said, maybe they just didn't mention it because the Nomad Soul, me, had been very selfish throughout the game. And if you think about when the Nomad Soul has any dialogue, the only thing we ever talk about is saving ourselves and preventing our souls from going into the reservoir. We really don't care about anything else that happens in the game. So it's just basically like the Awakened have to try to take advantage of the selfishness of the Nomad Soul, because the Nomad Soul is the prophesized one to defeat Astaroth. So they just have to make sure that they say the things that'll make me happy, so I'll work with them. I mean, honestly, though, if Astaroth had just said, yeah, here's your soul, you can leave,
Nice driving!
I guess I would have just left, you know? That would have been Astaroth's way out of that whole thing. But, yeah, Nomad Soul, Omikron, I had a good time playing it. I found it interesting, but there were some real bad parts to it. Nier, on the other hand, I've enjoyed all the way through, even though, you know, it doesn't have the real, like, amazingly bad parts that Omikron has, and as such, maybe it's not so much fun to watch. I am having a lot of fun playing it, and I have greatly enjoyed it over this entire year, as I've been slowly working my way through that thing. But yeah, it will finally come to an end to this month. And, well, I hope we all enjoy Crying Is Not Enough, which is going to be starting Monday.
Nice driving!
I need to get back to that game and start recording it, I guess. I hope there are many cutscenes in that game, and I hope they live up to the quality of that first cutscene. So, after watching this update video, I would suggest if you didn't see the Crying Is Not Enough demo friend, please watch it, because we're going to be starting from there. I'll see you then.
Spitz!